When we on this channel speak about the cost of living crisis in the UK, one of the things which comes up quite often is housing. Not just the cost of renting, but also the prospect that many people feel like they'll never be able to afford a home of their own. In a lot of places this does appear to be the case, with many cities now having very expensive both rentals and mortgages, making it very hard to actually get on the ladder, and that's if you can even find a place in the first place that's in your budget. And whilst I do agree with that point, whilst I do agree that most of the cities in the UK are extremely expensive, let's make a counter argument today. Let's have a look at the devil's advocate argument and look at why there are quite a few cheaper areas and properties in the UK, but why a lot of people don't seem to want them. So first we need to have an understanding of what people want when they are buying property here in the UK. And generally people want to buy houses. I know some people buy flats, but when we speak about, the concept of the American dream or the UK dream, whatever, people want to have a house. From what I see, people would prefer to have either a detached house or a semi-detached house, but generally it is a house. And people want a house that they can raise a child in. Maybe it's a 2-bed, a 3-bed, a 4-bed. All of these sorts of houses. But the trouble with this argument is, and I've said this numerous times, we look at who's buying these properties, and half of the time it doesn't even make sense. Now, I'm going to get to that in a second, but first I want to speak about property prices before we speak about properties themselves. Now, I do agree, like I said at the very beginning, most places now have very extortionate rents. Any big city, you're looking at, at least £500 to £700 for a small flat, if not a room share. That is ridiculous, and that's rental. When we come to purchasing properties though, many people look for these places, and I understand why. They're where the jobs are, they're where the communities are. If you're a young person, maybe a young professional, you'd much rather want to live in somewhere like Manchester or London than live in somewhere like Grimsby. At the same time though, if we're talking about owning a property, and if that's the end goal, there are affordable properties in these areas, or much more affordable. If you look in some parts of Wales, if you look in some parts of the north, places like Blackpool, places like Grimsby, and by the way, I am not a property expert, I've just had a little look at this myself. You can find reasonable properties for like 100k. Maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less, depends what you think is reasonable. But there are still cheaper areas. And then people make this argument of, well, then I'd have to move out of this place and I don't want to do that. That's fair enough, but now we're asking a different question. Is property prices in London high? Yeah. Is it high in most of the cities? Yes. But are there cheap properties in the UK? Well, I wouldn't say cheap, but cheaper. And whilst that is true, people don't seem to want these properties. Because, again, people talk about the fact that they are in bad areas or worse areas, but that's a different question. People can afford nice properties might be a different point to people can afford properties. And again, nice properties, some of these places are fine. Some of these houses are pretty good, but people don't want to live in these areas for some reason, and I do kind of understand it, because you want to be around your community, right? If you're from, I don't know, London, and you want to be around London, so why should you get priced out of your area? Well, you shouldn't. But here's the thing, people will comment on a video like this saying, well, that's not fair. I don't make the rules. I don't make the rules, guys. I agree it's not fair, but we need to play the game that we're playing. If you want to invest in a property asset, it is still relatively doable. Like 60 to 100 or 150k is not that unreasonable for most people's salaries, budgets, or even what they're paying versus renting. And the deposits on those places will be quite low as well. Another big thing about what people expect is a house of a certain size or a certain quality. Like I say, people want to live in the bigger cities. People want to live in the nicer houses. But the reality of it is this. Again, I don't make the rules, but in today's market, things are different. And what I mean by that is, you can't just go from renting or living with family or parents or roommates to getting a 4-bedroom house in today's market. It's just not the way it is. If you want to do that, or if you want to get something, would it not make more sense to have some foot in the property ladder? And that's where a lot of these 2-bedroom houses, 3-bedroom houses in slightly smaller, places, plots of land, in slightly worse or more deprived towns become a lot more affordable. Because here's the thing, no one's saying that these are going to be the dream houses, the forever houses. But at the end of the day, these are properties that people can still buy if they want to. They're cheaper a lot of the time than the national average. Now, what's going to come with that is probably going to have to be a circumstantial change in living conditions. To go from your town or city to a place in the coast or up north or in Scotland or Wales is a big move. Is it something that I would even do? Not likely, not right now, maybe in a couple of years, but here's the thing. I am not advocating necessarily move into these towns or saying that it's good, but there is a counter argument to every argument. And the idea that property prices are extremely high, they are in a lot of areas, but a lot of areas have not experienced this rise yet. And whether they will, whether they won't, time will tell. But this is today's market. Today's market is a place where rentals are increasingly shaky. We don't know what we're getting with them a lot of the time. You know, we've got a lot of landlords which seem quite unreasonable, to be honest. Rents are increasing. And then people say, well, they'll never be able to get on the property ladder. I'm not even saying this is a good point necessarily, but this is the thing. You can get on the property ladder in some other areas, in some smaller houses, if it's what you really want. And if the alternative is renting, it might make more sense. Now, the same challenges will apply no matter where you live. If you're going to get a mortgage or buy a house in that manner, you're going to be stuck there until it's paid off or until you've found somewhere else to move, basically. Whatever arrangements you make to do that. So, yes, there might be a time level commitment of 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, maybe more. But I think you guys might understand what I'm saying here. Because we like to make a lot of arguments about it's so difficult, and it is. It is in a lot of places. But whilst I don't necessarily agree in the fact it's fair, I'm not saying it's fair at all. There are potential opportunities there. And again, a lot of people wouldn't look twice at these houses because of the areas, because of the, the condition. People are looking to buy big family homes, for forever homes as they're called, as their first property. And in today's market, guys, I'm not trying to be mean or rude, and I might sound a bit condescending here or patronising, but I don't mean to. But in today's market, we're not in the market of the past. Property prices ostensibly are very high valued, if not potentially even overvalued, who knows. But at the same time, this is the market that we're in. So, I don't know if it's a good idea. I don't care what you guys do. If you want to do it, if you don't, that's none of your business. But it's none of my business, I should say. But there is a strong point here, I think. Because everyone likes to make this fact that property prices in the UK are very expensive. And this is the thing that gets countered with the most in the comment section. Property prices are so expensive, so I'm moving to this place or that place overseas. Which is fair enough. If you want to just have a change in lifestyle, why not, right? But at the same time, people will be complaining about the property prices in the UK and living in the UK, and then look to move abroad. And then you just say, why don't you move to Blackpool? Why don't you move to Skegness? Why don't you move to... It goes on. Mainly places in the north. Why don't you go to Wales? Oh, well, that's far away from my family. I think you guys get what I'm saying here. It's not fair that people have to move. And I've had this in the comment section where I've spoken about this before. So do you think it's fair that I've got to move out of London? No, I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair at all. I don't think it's fair for me. I don't think it's fair for you. But we can do two things. We can sit here and complain about how bad it is, or we can acknowledge today's market and move forwards with it. If you're like me and you're young and you're either single or in an early stages relationship, which I think if you're around my age, you inevitably are going to be in one of the two things, there's no need to have a 4-bedroom house or a 3-bedroom house. Yes, you may be expecting kids, but look, 10 years in today's property market is a long time. Look at property prices in 2014 to now. And with that being the context, maybe, I don't know if it is your choice to make. I'm not going to say, I don't own a property, by the way, for some context. But I'm just saying, maybe it might be better to have somewhere to live where rent is relatively set, i.e. mortgage, where you have some equity building in the property, than to have nowhere. Is it fair to think about moving halfway across the country? Possibly not. Is today's market a place where no matter how much you or I like it, places in many of our big cities are now going to be unaffordable, probably permanently? Well, that's also true. So do we sit here and complain and do nothing whilst property prices rise, or do we look at the options available to us? If you want to move abroad, I've always said, right, I think it's a very smart move. Not even necessarily for a better life, but just to experience the world. Why not? But if you're the kind of person, like I know a lot of you guys in the comment section are, and I know a lot of people in real life are, who is set that they want to live in the UK and they want to work for this company or this job, why don't you see if they've got a branch over in this place, or if they'll do remote work, or if you can commute? Yes, you will live in a worse town, or a slightly less vibrant town, but here's the thing, right? Everyone's after a certain lifestyle. Again, a starter home, a family home, a nice city, a good city, a big city. But in today's market, this is not the market that we're in anymore. Maybe even ever. But I'm sorry, guys, I don't make the rules, but this is what we've got to work with. Again, two camps of people. We can sit here and complain as much as we like, but it's not changing anything. Properties can be a lot cheaper than people make out, but people don't want these. That's just my understanding. Maybe I'm wrong. Like I say, I had a look online and you can find some very, very reasonable properties for under 150k, under 175k, even under sometimes 100k in smaller or worse towns in Northern England, in Scotland, in Wales as well. It's just about weighing up whether it's worth it for you. It's a call for you guys to make, but I just found it to be an interesting counter-argument to the property prices are so high. Is it true, or am I wrong? I don't know. Like I say, do I think it's right? Now we're asking a very different question. No. But like I said, we're in the position that we're in. And I think I'll leave it there.